Morning, YouTube! What's up, guys? Today we are doing the daily puzzle for Gen 16. Let's do it. Alright, so it is white to move, and here we notice that we have Queen Bishop versus Queen Bishop and Pawn, but look at the squares of the bishops. They are opposite colors. The black bishop has a white squared bishop, and the white bishop has a black squared bishop. So they're both opposite colors. Now, what does that mean exactly? Why is that important? Basically, what it means is if we're left with both bishops, neither of them can be taken. Neither of them could be captured, and therefore it would result in a draw, most likely. So if we take the queens off the board, that would most likely be a draw. So let's keep the queens on the board. Let's try to checkmate or win some material. For now, all I can see is that we want to go for a check. I mean, I don't really see any pins, forks, or skewers at the moment, other than maybe queen to e2. That pins the queen to the king. But like I said, that's trading queens. That's not what we want. We want to win the game. And so we have to keep the kings on the board. So what can we do? Well, let's break it down. If we can't do any forks or pins or skewers, like we mentioned, we can give a check. Now, how can we give a check in this position? Well, we actually have three ways of giving a check. The first is queen to g8. Queen to g8 results in maybe king to e7 or d7, and both look pretty safe for the king. I'd say there's no real follow-up to that. I mean, this bishop can't really do much after the king goes to perhaps d7. And I guess there are no more checks other than maybe just going back to g4. So, I mean, that could be a draw, technically, right? That's not what we want. We want to win the game. So, how do we do this? Well, there's another check, right? There's also queen to a4. That's another check. It checks the king diagonally, and this king might come to perhaps f8 or even e7. I feel like e7 is a bit safer, especially since the king can simply come to f6 if anything happens, where the queen can surround all squares pretty much. So basically, the king would have a good defense, and the queen would block under any circumstance, and that could result in a trade, which is bad for us. So we don't want to play queen a4. The third option is queen to c8. And queen to c8, what it does is it checks the king and gets it out of its comfort zone. Basically, it forces the king to go to one square. That's what I like about this move. It really helps me say, okay, I know why this is a tactic. It's a forcing move. It pushes the king only to one square. They only have one move to make, and therefore there's a follow-up attack. Maybe we can bring this bishop in to perhaps h4 or even c5, and we can progress our pieces such that we'll eventually end up in a checkmate. So let's go ahead and play queen c8, as I believe it is the most forcing move, and the computer also recommends it. Alright, so that was the move. Now we have to look for the squares in which the king can move to. Right now the queen is occupying the whole back rank, which is nice, also this diagonal. So basically, the king can only go to two squares. That is d6 and f6, and both of them can be attacked using maybe this bishop. Well, actually, if we use this bishop, it can only attack one of them. But which check do we want to play with this bishop? For the queen, I think it's over for the checks. I mean, there are no more checks for the queen. The queen cannot come to c7, b7, as both black's queen and bishop are both guarding both those squares. The king is guarding the rest of the squares. There are no more checks. Absolutely none. But we can use our bishop. So bishop to h4. I'm debating this move. I mean, it puts the bishop on the edge, and, you know, it only attacks it from one side. So it is bishop c5. However, bishop c5, I feel like we're in control of the position, and we can use both of these pieces to our advantage. If we take both pieces to the queen side, we can have a checkmate on the queen side. If we take this piece to the king side, I mean, after f6, this bishop looks pretty hindered and pretty blocked, pretty much. Like it's very close position for this bishop. So it's not looking nice. However, if we go to bishop c5, there's pretty much no blocking. In fact, the king is forced to go outside its comfort zone again with the move king f6. So let's go ahead and play that. And now king f6, that is where we want it to go. Out into the jungle where we can just hunt it down. Now, we must look for the pins, forks, skewers. We have landed the king in such a position where it is right in front of the queen diagonally. So, we have two options. We can put this queen on h8, pinning the king to the queen. Remember, we don't want to trade just yet. However, we can win material. I don't think this check does much. I mean, it allows the king to just simply go back to g7, and that's the end of our attack. So, I think we want to focus on this pin. Maybe we can even try playing something like... well, eventually maybe we can back up the queen with our bishop. And so these two protect each other. And then the bishop can move to d4, pinning the queen to the king, which is very nice. But that's too slow. That's a two-step plan. We need something fast. And I believe I see it. I think the move is bishop to d4. And the reason why I say this is not because we're going crazy and we're sacrificing our bishop. The reason why I say this is because we're setting up a position to our own advantage. We are setting up the king to be 2 squares away from the queen. And now what we can do is we can use this queen h8 resource to our own advantage, skewering the king to the queen. Now for certain, we will win that queen no matter what. And let's go to the analysis mode. If we see here, this bishop, queen, king pin is very nice. I've seen this pattern over and over again with the various tactics I've solved. This queen really cannot escape this pin. It has to take that bishop, otherwise we will take the queen. So once it takes that bishop, we simply put it into a skewer. And now, the king, wherever it moves, it can no longer defend that queen. And eventually, it will be captured. And that is pretty much game. I mean, this bishop, I mean, I think it is possible to checkmate. For a draw, I think we have to be careful because, you know, we have to apply all the rules like the 50 move rule and the 3 move repetition rules. So you just have to be careful in these end games. But eventually we will progress our king over, and eventually we'll land that king in the corner where it can finally be checkmated. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that daily puzzle for today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.